The world faded away. Apunanwu glided with such ease and elegance, like she had long prepared for this very moment. Prince Obinna's heart swelled. It felt like a dream, one he wished he never woke up from. The crowd applauded as they concluded their dance with a royal kiss. He held her hand and led her gently, silently out of the grand hall as the crowd stared in awe and applauded in admiration, as if tonight was a royal wedding and not just a ball. They walked past the towering pillars and through the rose-covered arches that led into the royal garden of Ugwueze. It was a garden known only to a few, lit by glowing crystal lanterns and kissed by moonlight, a sacred place where kings had made promises and queens had once whispered secrets into the wind. There, beneath a flowering rose tree, they stopped. The warm breeze danced against their faces. The flowers and trees swayed softly as if aware of the moment's gravity.
Who are you?
The prince asked, his voice low, his lips trembling.
You have haunted my heart since the forest. What is your name?
Apunanwu's breath caught. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time in forever, she felt seen, not as a servant, not as a burden, but as something rare, something cherished. I am no one of importance, my prince, she whispered, trembling slightly. Just a girl who dreams.
You are everything I never knew I needed,
he said.
I don't know your name, your story, or where you come from, but I don't care. I know my heart has chosen you.
He knelt before her.
Marry me. Rule Ugwueze with me. Please, be my queen.
Apunanwu's heart soared like an eagle breaking free from a cage. For a second, time stood still. Her entire life, the basement, the grief, the beatings, the loneliness, all faded like dust behind her. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. He rose up gently and engulfed her in a romantic hug. Their breaths caught, their hearts pounded. They had just made a wedding promise, sealed under the full moon. But alas, the moment didn't last. Time was of the essence. The bells began to toll. The magic snapped like a taut string. Apunanwu's eyes widened in panic. She remembered her godmother's voice.
You must leave before the last stroke of the clock.
She wanted to stay, but she knew she couldn't. The spell would fade. She turned and fled.
Wait, where are you going?
Prince Obinna called after her as she fled through the enchanted garden and towards where her carriage was waiting. Her heart raced as she quickened her steps. She suddenly tripped on the marble floor and fell, one of her shoes flying into the air. She paid no heed as she rose and kept running, with the prince hot on her trail. She got into the carriage and it galloped out of the palace into the forest, giving no room for a chase. And there, under the moonlight, lay the glass shoe, delicate, ethereal, impossibly perfect. Prince Obinna knelt. He lifted the shoe as though it were the last piece of a sacred puzzle. He held it and ran after her, determined to catch up with her. But by the time he reached the palace gates, breathless and wide-eyed, she was gone. Apunanwu slipped into the house like a thief in the night. She tiptoed gently, trying not to make a sound. But as she crossed the living room, a voice stopped her. Where do you think you are coming from? She growled. Apunanwu jumped in fear, startled by the question she never saw coming. She swiftly turned to the sound, and there she stood behind her, eyes burning like coal. I just filled the last empty drum of water from the stream, she replied with a shaky voice. I did everything you asked me to do. I cooked and I cleaned and I mopped the floor. Madame Obegeli eyed her suspiciously.
Good for you. Now scurry back into your little hole,
she bellowed with a low, thunderous voice. Apunanwu ran off into the basement, her heart pounding so loud. She could swear that her stepmother had seen through her lies. She sat at a corner, still in disbelief over the turn of tonight's events. One moment, she was crying herself to sleep in the forest, and the next, she was a princess at the royal ball. And the ball, that was a dream, and she was at the center of it all. The hunter, her savior from the forest, was Ugwueze's prince, and he has asked to marry her. Apunanwu pinched herself to ensure this wasn't an out-of-body experience. What is going on? She thought out loud. Who exactly was that woman in the forest? She had so many questions running through her mind. But one thing was certain. Tonight was the happiest she has ever been, whether it was real or not. She was grateful for the fleeting moment that felt like her world was going to be alright. But as morning came and she went back to being the slave who no one cared for, she convinced herself to put that night behind her and bury whatever hope of freedom or happiness that was sprouting. The news swept through Ugwueze like wildfire. The mysterious maiden who had caught the prince's attention had vanished like the wind, leaving only a glass shoe behind. Madame Obiageli and her daughters couldn't stop talking about it. The prince should just organize another royal ball so he can make another choice. Surely this mysterious maiden is too mysterious to be found. Who was she anyway? She looked so different, so beautiful. And that dress, I wish I had one like that, Ugwueze remarked wishfully. They rambled on and on about the ball. Apunanwu paid no heed and merely smiled to herself. If only they knew who this mysterious maiden was. And what are you smiling about, you peasant? Be fast with the dusting, Madame Obiageli scolded sharply. Apunanwu snapped out of her daydreaming and continued her work. Mama, there's something different about this girl these days. She looks so happy and absent-minded, Akuna remarked. Madame Obiageli thought over it for a second, and it hit her that truly there was something different about her stepdaughter, in the way she smiled to herself when she thought no one was looking. Keep an eye on her. I suspect her. Let us find out what is making her so giddy. Yes, mother, her daughters agreed. Weeks after failing to find the mysterious bride, Prince Obinna had grown weary with hope. He was lovesick. He wanted to be married to the girl who had weaved him into her web of love. The shoe was the only thing she had left with him, not even a name. A messenger was soon brought in, and the prince issued a royal decree.
Bring all the maidens to the palace. Whoever fits this shoe will be my wife.
Hear now, good people of Ugwueze Kingdom. The crown prince has issued a royal decree. Mysterious maiden who captured the prince's heart left a glass shoe behind. All pure maidens are hereby invited to the palace for a fitting. Any maiden who fits into the glass shoe will be the future queen of Ugwueze Kingdom.
The crowd once again buzzed in excitement. This had never happened in the kingdom of Ugwueze. This was a one-of-a-kind kind of news. Apunanwu was in the crowd when the town crier announced the news. Her legs trembled. Her mind raced like 1,000 athletes. The prince was serious about marrying her. He was desperate to find her. This wasn't a dream. What was she going to do? She ran back home, her heart beating so fast. She quietly went into the basement and opened one of the old boxes and brought out the second pair of the glass shoes. She held it close to her chest, reminiscing on the moment she had danced with the prince, the way she held her so gently, with love, with purpose, with intention. An air of resolution washed over her. She would come forward as a mysterious bride. She would go to the palace and claim her rightful place. And with that resolve, she gently placed the shoe back into the box and covered it. But unknown to her stepsisters were watching. So she was the one at the ball, Apunanwu whispered in shock as they handed the glass shoe to their mother.
Gods mock me! That dirty peasant dared to stand where my daughters should shine.
What are we going to do, Mama? The prince is really searching for her, and it's only a matter of time before he finds her, Ugwueze said, her voice weak. Madame Obiageli's eyes narrowed like knives.
Then we shall steal destiny itself. She will never be queen.
They traveled deep into the forest that night, their carriage creaking along a forbidden path, until they reached the hut of Iruka, the witch, hidden at the edge of the evil forest. It was a lone hut, situated at the place no human dared venture into. Inside, the crone was bent, her back curled like a bow, her eyes glowing with an eerie fire. The air inside reeked of bones, herbs, and secrets. Madame Obiageli and her daughter Apunanwu were doing the absolute unthinkable. They had come to visit the witch.
You bring me trinket, but this is no ordinary glass shoe. This shoe is bound by ancient magic, pure and dangerous.
Don't care. I want my daughter to fit into this shoe so she can marry the prince.
It can be done. But listen very carefully. This shoe is old magic. It was bound to only one true maiden of pure heart, and so cannot be undone. And so the maiden must not be slain until your daughter's marriage to the prince is consummated. Until then, she must remain alive, but hidden far away from the reach of the prince. If the prince sees her before consummation with your daughter, the spell will fade and all will be lost.
Then we will hide her away, far away from human eyes.
Evil forest will welcome her. Nothing escapes from there. She will be well hidden.
But Mother, the evil forest is dangerous.
Silence. This is the best way. Apunanwu will rot away while you rise to the throne.
Bring your foot forward, child, the witch said to Apunanwu. Apunanwu raised her dress and brought her foot forward, and Iruka placed the glass shoe on her foot immediately. It melted into her foot, fitting her perfectly. They gasped. This was dark magic, dark and dangerous.
Is done. But remember, the true maiden must remain alive, but hidden far away.
Apunanwu was at the stream that night to fetch water.
Madame Obiageli's goons crept from the shadows. They seized her by the hands, dragging her along the lonely path. She fought back, kicking, clawing, but the men overpowered her. Her cries were swallowed by the night. They dragged her through the winding paths until they reached the evil forest, where the trees leaned like twisted giants and the ground was littered with skulls. A great cage woven from ironwood vines was waiting. They threw her into it and shut the cage, and then left without saying a word. And as she screamed and panted, trying to understand what was going on, a familiar figure approached. Madame Obiageli.
So you are the mysterious maiden the entire kingdom has been looking for?
You dirty peasant girl. So you wish to be queen? You wish to rule me? I don't wish to rule over you, mother.
I am not your mother, and I will never be, you peasant.
Will rot in this evil forest while my daughter rise to the throne.
Goodbye, dirty little peasant.
Apunanwu shook the cage violently, her wails echoing throughout the forest. The forest whispered around her, voices rising like a choir of the damned. Red eyes blinked between the trees. The ground paused as if alive. Alone, chained and trembling from cold, from fear and from damnation, Apunanwu whispered to the bracelet on her wrist, "Godmother, please, come and save me. Don't let my story end here, please." Maidens flocked to the palace like waves rushing to the shore. Even older women way past their prime with hopes of love and luxury. One by one, they tried on the shoe, but none succeeded. They left quietly with their hopes dashed. Meanwhile, at their home, Madam Obiageli and her daughters were seriously preparing to go to the palace to try on the shoe. She brought her daughters close to cook up a perfect plan on how to claim the glass shoe.
Now listen, Ugwueze will go first. When the shoe doesn't fit, she will appear very sad. Then Akuna will go after you. That way, no one suspects anything.
And then they made their way to the palace, slow and steady, like they were taking their time to allow other maidens try in vain for what was already theirs. Akuna and Ugwueze were the only maidens left to try the shoe. The crowd waited and watched. When it was her turn, Ugwueze went first, just as they had planned. The prince watched keenly as the palace guard knelt before her and placed the shoe at her feet. And as expected, they struggled with the shoe. It was not her size. Akuna turned and went away, pale and sad. Now it was Akuna, the last maiden standing. Akuna stepped forward. She pulled up her dress and raised her legs. The guard knelt before her with the glass shoe. Everyone watched, breaths caught in their chests. And just when they thought that all hope was lost, boom! Her foot slid inside and fit perfectly, like it was carved just for her. There was silence. Everyone froze, eyes wide, mouth hung open. A loud of applause suddenly burst out from the crowd. They screamed out for joy. The prince pumped his hands in the air in jubilation. Prince Obinna scooped Akuna in his arms and twirled her around, unsuspecting. Finally, he had found his bride. He carried her into his arms and took her into the royal court to present her to the king and queen. The drums of Ugwueze roared. The land rejoiced. The prince had found his bride. A royal wedding was in the offing. Madam Obiageli smiled wickedly. Yes, it was done. Destiny has been rewritten. But somewhere deep inside the evil forest, the truth scrambled to be free, and the light fought to be separated from darkness.
The darkness had weight. It pressed against Apunanwu's skin like wet cloth, heavy and cold. The cage of ironwood vines loomed around her, alive, breathing, creaking softly as though the forest itself was testing her strength. The air tasted of rust and damp moss. Every breath she drew carried a scent of rot, of things long dead but not yet gone. She sat huddled on the ground, arms around her knees, trembling. The moon above was a cracked eye, half veiled by drifting fog. Her gown was torn, her hair tangled with leaves, the bracelets on her wrist, the only remnant of her godmother's magic, glowed faintly like a dying ember. "Please, godmother, don't let my story end here," she cried silently. Her voice vanished almost instantly, swallowed by the trees. Then, softly, a whisper returned to her.
"Apunanwu, daughter of fire."
She froze. She was not alone. Something or someone else was here. The voice sounded thin and warped, like wind moving through a hollow skull. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She rose slowly, clutching the bars of her cage, peering out into the murk. The forest stared back. The trees were colossal, their roots gnarled and blackened as if burned. The leaves dripped a sap that shimmered red under the moonlight. Shadows scuttled between trunks, small, fast, wrong. "Who is there?" Apunanwu called, her voice breaking. The forest sighed, a low rustle that might have been wind or breath. She could feel it now. The forest was not still, it was listening. She took a shaky step back. The vines that made her cage shifted, tightening slightly around her arms. She winced. The vines were alive. When she moved, they moved with her. When she spoke, they paused. "Godmother, please save me," she muttered, her breath coming fast. "Save me, please, Godmother." Out of nowhere, a brilliant lightning shook the forest, threatening the darkness that had dimmed out every light. It struck Apunanwu's cage several times, its brilliance almost knocking her out of consciousness. Then, an otherworldly entity in the form of a fish with wings flew across her twice and disappeared. Everywhere quieted, just as abruptly as it began. The cage shuddered. A drop of sap suddenly fell from above, landing on Apunanwu's arm. It burned. She gasped, staring at the spots where the sap had touched her skin. A faint light began to pulse beneath it, golden and strange. The light on her arm spread slowly, like veins of molten gold beneath her skin. The vines recalled slightly, hissing. Somewhere in the distance, a low rumble began. A heartbeat, deep and ancient, echoing from the earth itself. "What is happening to me?" Apunanwu cried, but the forest didn't answer. The atmosphere changed. The air grew warmer. The mist thinned, glowing faintly orange. Apunanwu looked around, startled, her tears drying on her cheeks. The scent in the air changed, from rot to something sharp and wild, like burning cedar. The voices of the forest grew frantic. What is happening?" Apunanwu whimpered fearfully. The vines convulsed, splitting and scattering like embers as the ground around her cage cracked like breaking clay. Through the fissures, light spilled, gold, red and hot. The forest groaned in protest. The air shimmered with heat. The fire flared up suddenly, and the cage burst open like a bomb blast. And from the flame rose the girl, Apunanwu, first of her name, daughter of the sun, child of flame, the unburnt. From the ashes she rose. Iron bars could not contain her. Hatred would not deter her. She moved swiftly, aware of the essence of time. She could not let the prince be married to a lie. She had to save him and the kingdom from the evil and greediness of her stepmother and stepsisters. She ran through the forest, the fire blazing on each side. Suddenly, her godmother appeared behind her, urging her on. Apunanwu gasped as a new warmth surged through her veins. Sweet, fierce, endless. Her hair lifted as if alive, glowing faintly like embers. The goddess' voice echoed, reverberating through the trees, through the soil, through the bones of the dead.
Go, my child, daughter of the sun. Tonight, You shall gain victory.
The forest bowed, and as Apunanwu ran, the ground beneath her feet began to turn to light. Each stride burned away the mist. The trees parted, forming a path that glowed like molten gold. The shadows that once whispered now sang, the chant of freedom, of reckoning. She did not look back. Above her, the goddess dissolved like fireflies, illuminating her path. Apunanwu clenched her fist. The light beneath her feet pulsed like a heartbeat. And as she gradually approached the kingdom of Ugwueze, the forest fell away behind her like a dying dream. The wedding drums thundered throughout Ugwueze like the heartbeats of a sleeping god. They shook the pillars of the palace, echoed through the marble corridors, rippled across the garden where once the rose tree had shaded the promise of love. Prince Obinna and Akunna stood before the high priest. The crowd was vast, nobles in shimmering robes, foreign emissaries, and the royal family, all gathered inside the courtroom. The air was heavy with perfume, wine, and the electric hum of celebration. Madame Obiageli sat close to the dais, smiling like a queen who had written her own prophecy. Ugwueze, her younger daughter, sat beside her, trembling with excitement and fear, disguised as grace. The wedding was really happening. They knelt down. The priest raised his hands.
By the gods of Ugwueze, by the blood of the ancestors, this union is blessed. Let all bear witness as the crown prince takes his bride.
The crowd erupted in cheers. Prince Obinna turned to Akunna, searching her eyes.
I still cannot believe it was you.
He murmured, half to himself.
That night, I thought...
He paused, confusion flickering across his face. Something about her didn't match the memory. The color of her eyes, the way she moved, the smell of her breath, the depth of her stare. But Akunna only smiled, forced and brittle. It was me, my prince. I was afraid that night, so I ran. But fate has brought us back together again.
Oh, yes, fate.
He nodded, uncertain and unsure. The priest raised his hands again to bless the union. And then the air changed. The candlelights along the walls flared. The music faltered. A strange wind swept through the courtyard, smelling of iron and rain. The guests began to murmur. Some looked upward. The sun had been cloaked in red. Madame Obiageli's smile stiffened. Her eyes darted around, weary. Then the gate swung open. A maiden stood there. Above her head, a fiery eagle rested, mesmerizing, regal, and otherworldly. Around her, the air glowed faintly gold, and every breath she took, the torches dimmed, as though the light itself bowed to her. Everyone stared, gobsmacked, frozen in awe. Then, somewhere in the crowd, someone whispered,
"That is the mysterious bride from the royal ball."
This is impossible. No way. Look, Your Highness. That is the true maiden over there.
A murmur rippled through the crowd. The prince froze, his heart slamming against his ribs.
No, it can't be.
He turned to Akunna, his anger blazing.
So you lied to me and deceived me? Who are you?
The crowd booed them. They screamed at Akunna and her mother.
Imposters! She's an imposter!
Fake bride. She needs to be arrested.
Akunna left her bouquet and fled the altar. Madame Obiageli and Ugwueze fled the grand hall. The spell had been broken. Their secret had been exposed, and now they had to run for their lives.
Guards, arrest them! Don't let them escape!
The palace guards swung into action, immediately chasing them in a hot pursuit. They fled the hallway, their feet thundering across the marble lanes. The carriage galloped out of Ugwueze's palace gates like thunderclap, with the soldiers closely behind. The pursuit was hot, charred, and fiery. The hooves of the hearses thundered behind them, pounding like drums of vengeance. Madame Obiageli's carriage swayed violently as the wheels dug into the uneven dirt road. The wind tore through the windows, and Ugwueze clung to her side, screaming. The horses' neighs echoed through the forest path. Branches clawed at the sides of the carriage as they sped toward the river, the ancient boundary between Ugwueze and Ocheze kingdoms. The horses broke through the trees, and there it was, the great river, boundless and dangerous. Its surface churned slowly as though it sensed what was coming. They leapt from the carriage before it stopped moving and ran into the river. Behind them, the soldiers burst out through the trees. "Stop!" the leader shouted. "By the order of the king of Ugwueze!" But Madame Obiageli did not stop. She held her daughters and dived into the water. The cold gripped them instantly, like 1,000 unseen hands. They began to swim, their garments dragging them down. But Madame Obiageli kept going, each stroke more desperate than the last. The soldiers halted at the edge of the river, watching as the three women struggled farther and farther into the current. Their leader lifted his sword, but made no move to follow.
The river of Ugwueze spares no guilty soul. Let the gods pass their judgment.
And then the water began to roar. At first, it was a low rumble like distant thunder. Then it rose, a monstrous growl from the deep. The surface swelled, forming waves that spiraled into a vortex. Lightning cracked across the sky without warning, illuminating the figures in the water. Akunna screamed as the current yanked her under. Ugwueze reached for her sister, but vanished in the next surge. Madame Obiageli fought to stay afloat, gasping, fastly losing her breath.
No! I am not guilty! I did it for my daughters!
The river answered with fury. A colossal shape formed beneath the surface, a glowing liquid entity with eyes like molten gold. It rose from the depths, towering over the river, its voice like a storm.
Happiness built on the foundation of the innocent never ends well.
Before Madame Obiageli could speak, the creature lunged forward. The waves swallowed them whole, twisting and folding the water upon itself. The screams faded beneath the roar. The soldiers watched in silence. When the water stilled again, only ripples remained. The moon broke free of its clouds, casting pale lights on the empty river. The soldiers clapped excitedly, stomping their hands in the air as if they had just concluded a favorite movie show at the local theater. Justice had been served. Apunanwu walked up to the prince at the altar. "Prince Obinna," she said softly. The prince's knees gave way. He knew that voice. It lived in his dreams.
It is you, my love. It is really you. I almost lost you.
It is I, my prince. The gods would not let you lose me on their watch.
Prince Obinna took Apunanwu's hand. The fire that wrapped her softened, dimmed, and flowed around them both. Silence fell. The drums stopped. Apunanwu looked into the prince's eyes and spoke up. Her voice trembled.
I came to reclaim what was stolen, but only if it is freely given.
Prince Obinna looked at her for a long moment and then knelt before her in front of all Ugwueze.
It is not freely given. You are chosen, my queen.
I love you.
They stood before the priests, ready to be joined as one. The prince immediately began the wedding ritual.
How you may kiss the bride.
And as they shared a royal kiss, a roar of applause went out from the crowd. The prince scooped her in his arms and led her to the dance floor. He whispered sweet nothings in her ear. She blushed happily. The newlyweds melted hearts. It was a love story worth telling to generations to come. Apunanwu looked up, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she saw the faint outline of her mother's face, smiling through the firelight. And when she blinked, the figure was gone, leaving only warmth and the scent of burning blossoms. If you enjoyed this story, consider sticking around the community by hitting that subscribe button and smash the notification bell so you can always be updated when the next video drops. Please don't forget to check out other videos on my channel, and I promise you will not be disappointed. See you in my next one, and stay fabulous.